In this video, I'll walk you through how to switch your podcast to Buzzsprout. This is a pretty easy process and it usually takes about 15 minutes. So let's get into it. Go to buzzsprout.com, click Get Started Free, and I will enter my name, my email, confirm I'm not a robot, and click Create My Podcast. Now I'm going to enter a password. Now there's an option to say whether you already have a podcast or if you're starting fresh. So since I am bringing my podcast over from another host, I'm going to say, I already have a podcast. Now on the Find Your Podcast page, there's two different options for how to find your podcast to import into Buzzsprout. The first option is to enter your podcast name and Buzzsprout will search Apple Podcasts for that listing. So we can type in how to start a podcast. This is not the one that I'm copying over, but it just shows how to do it. And then I can click on this and then copy the episodes into Buzzsprout. However, this isn't my podcast, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to import my podcast using my RSS feed URL. And if you need help finding your RSS feed, there are some examples here of where to find them in these podcast hosts. I, however, have my example podcast on Spotify, so I'm going to go to my Spotify account. And then under Settings and Podcast Availability, I can scroll down to RSS Distribution and copy the RSS feed. Go back over to Buzzsprout and paste that in. Find my podcast. So when you select your podcast, Buzzsprout will copy over the podcast artwork, all the details, and 2 of the episodes. Now you'll notice that it only copied the most recent 2 episodes, and this is so that you can get a feel for how things work before committing to anything. So take this time to poke around, look at the features, and double check that the podcast info is correct. So let's see my podcast in Buzzsprout. The next steps to complete the podcast import are at the top of the Buzzsprout dashboard. So next I'm going to upgrade to a paid plan. There's different options here. You can do 3 hours a month for $12, 6 hours, 12 hours. My podcast does not need that much time, so I'm just going to go with the 3 hours. Enter my credit card information. Complete upgrade. Now that I'm upgraded, I can copy my remaining episodes, and these will not count against my hourly allowance. And you'll see that they are imported and processing immediately. So I'm just going to take a quick break and come back in a couple minutes, and these will be finished. And we're back. All right, all of my episodes have finished importing, so now I can go add in the stats. So I'm just going to scroll up to stats here. And if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see an option to manually add downloads from your imported episodes to keep track of all your stats in one place. So we're going to click that. Now, this is just to track the previous download numbers. It will not be tracking information from your other hosts like listener location, things like that. This is just so that you don't start from scratch after all of your hard work. So one thing that you can do is take a screenshot of your episode downloads and just enter them in here. So for my podcast, I know that I have 2, 3. And then I'll just save the stats. And now when I go to episodes, you'll see them showing up here. Okay, so we're at the final step, which is to redirect your RSS feed. Moving your podcast to another host is sort of the same as when you move to a new house and you have to forward your mail to that new address. Podcast apps are the same. When a listener goes to download your podcast, you need to tell the app, my podcast used to live here, but now it lives here. So if we click redirect your RSS feed, the way in which you redirect your feed is going to be a little bit different depending on who your host is. And Buzzsprout actually has a help article explaining the best way to redirect your feed for each host. So we have Anchor, Blueberry, Libsyn, Podbean, SoundCloud, Squarespace, all these. So the first step is to copy your Buzzsprout RSS feed, and my podcast is hosted on Spotify. So I'm going to go to Settings, then Podcast Settings, and then I'm going to scroll all the way down to More Actions, and there's an option here to redirect your podcast. So I'm going to paste the Buzzsprout URL that we just copied, click Redirect, and then I'm going to scroll all the way up to Save, and let's see if it works. You will get this fun confetti page saying your feed is redirected to Buzzsprout. So even though you are hosted on Buzzsprout now, you'll want to make sure that you keep your old host active for at least 2 to 3 weeks to make sure that all the platforms sync up, and then you can delete the account with the old host. I hope this video has been helpful for you. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know in the comments below or reach out to support@buzzsprout.com. And as always, thanks for watching and keep podcasting.